What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to review the 2025 Street Bob. Really quickly before we jump into that, just a reminder to check out the channel affiliates down in the description below. All of those codes will help you guys save some money, put a little in my pocket, so it's a win for both of us. Let's get into the review. All right, so I'll give you guys a walk around of this bike while we talk some numbers. MSRP on this bike is going to start at $17,199, and that's for the bike that we're looking at. Billiard gray is the new standard Harley Davidson color. It's not black anymore. This bike is available in 4 other colors with an upcharge. One of the colors that I really liked on this bike and didn't really expect to is this center line yellow. I'm not normally a yellow bike kind of guy. I just feel like it looks good. It's an old school vibe for this bike, so I feel like it fits. Now, per Harley Davidson's website, this bike is only available in the chrome trim, which is funny to me since it has black forks, black wheels. Everything is black on this bike except the polished engine covers and some chrome exhaust. I don't dislike it. I do love the look of this bike. It's just funny they call it a chrome package only. There's also 2 wheel choices. So let's talk about that really quickly. You get this cast option, which is a 6-spoke wheel. This one needs to be cleaned, but you got this option, or you've also got this laced wheel option, but it's not your traditional spoke. So this is a design that we first saw on the Pan America back in 2021, I believe. So if you'll notice, the wheel sticks out a little farther than the tire, and your spokes are to the outside of the wheel. Now, why is that important? You no longer have to run an inner tube, although this is what's considered a spoked or laced wheel, because of those spokes coming to the outside of the wheel. So none of the traditional problems that you have with laced wheels, which I thought was really nice. This one is in the Iron Horse Metallic colorway. I like this a lot more than the Billiard Gray. I wish we could review this one, but as you can see, it's stuck out here in the back and it's just not really aesthetic for a video. So this bike only got a $200 increase over last year's model, but it got a ton of upgrades. So that's where we'll start this review, starting with this Milwaukee 8 117 that this bike now comes with. Last year was the 114. So in my opinion, just that alone is easily worth 200 bucks. It's worth a lot more, but you can justify that $200 bump in price just off that alone. Now, the next thing this bike got that was a big upgrade is ride modes. So you'll see on the display here, we're in sport mode. If you toggle through, you have a rain mode. You also have a road mode. So 3 modes total on the Street Bob. Very nice feature, very nice upgrade. Now, the next big feature that you got on this that's also easily worth 200 bucks are those LED turn signals that were just flashing at us. A lot of you know I bashed Harley for years for not doing LEDs, and we finally have LED turn signals on all Harley Davidson models. So you get that front as well as rear, obviously. So on the Street Bob, your tail light and turn signals are going to be integrated into one. So your run light, brake light, turn signal, all housed in these 2 little lights. They are super bright, so I like that because it keeps the bike really clean while also giving you a ton of light on the back of this motorcycle. Some of you may have spotted it when I showed you guys the ride modes, but also new for 2025 is this gauge, at least new for the Street Bob model. So you have your analog speedo, you have a bunch of digital information here. Actually, we'll turn it on, let you guys see it if we get that glare off of there. So what all is this gauge going to tell us? Well, obviously it's going to tell us our fuel, how much fuel we've got in the bike. As you can see, it's going to show our mileage. That's the total mileage. So there's 4 miles on this bike. It's brand new. Trip A, Trip B, how many miles until you run out of gas, your clock, your RPM, which is really nice to have, your air pressure, front, rear, and then back to your mileage. So this gauge is new for this year. I'll show you the one it had on it last year. So this is last year's gauge, and the only reason I'm pointing that out is because in my opinion, I like this one just a little bit better. You get all the same info except you have a digital speedo instead of the analog speedo. I just feel like this keeps the bike really clean. Now, I'm a little biased because I have that same gauge on my personal Harley Davidson. This one looks a little bit different because it's in the roll and sand sector risers and gauge relocation housing. So it looks a little bit different, but you see how it keeps the bike super, super clean right there. Also, shameless promotion. This is my personal bike that happens to be for sale. I think I've put about $16,000 in upgrades on it. Wheels, 128 kit, making 145 horsepower. Seat, bars, Baja Designs lights, all the good stuff that you could want on a bike. Hit me up if you're interested. Don't bother leaving a comment. Just find my email down in the description and shoot me an email and we can talk about it. Now, one of the things that I really love about the Street Bob is one of the things that's gonna make a lot of people hate it, and that's the gas tank. I just love the lines of this bike. I love the shape of this tank. The problem is it's only 3.5 gallons, which is going to turn into a lot of stops. Trust me, I know. I have a 3.5 gallon tank on my bike with a built motor, and you end up stopping a lot. The problem would be you put a bigger tank on this bike and it absolutely kills the look. If you want, you can join some Street Bob groups or some of the Softail Standard groups, which is no longer a thing. We finally lost the Softail Standard in 2025, but we basically have it in this. It's just a different engine and setup for two-up riding, and it's not really that much more money. But point being, if you join those groups, you can see where some people have put some of the 5-gallon tanks, like the one that's on the Heritage Softail on that bike. And at first you might think, oh, that would probably look pretty good. In my opinion, it doesn't. The bike is too small to support a tank that big. Now, if you need it for functionality, I get it. You kind of sacrifice form for function, but this little, it's not a peanut tank, but it is a small tank, and I think that makes this bike look really, really good. Moving on back, you'll see the seat. Not a bad looking seat for a stock seat, to be completely honest. I don't have much time in the saddle of these stock seats that come on this bike. Most Harley seats are decent. They're not bad by any means, but they're not great. As you guys saw, I threw a saddlement on my bike. That's just what I like. The Street Bob, unlike the predecessor, the Softail Standard, does come with 2-up riding. So you're gonna get a passenger pillion. Now again, is this gonna be the most comfortable thing for your passenger? Absolutely not. I gotta feel like they're really, really gonna want you to upgrade to something a little more substantial. You do get a seat out of the box. It's just not much of a seat. And with that, you're going to get passenger pegs. Again, these are just gonna be Harley Davidson's basic foot pegs, which there's nothing wrong with. It's just something most people are going to want to upgrade. And as far as seats, I feel like you're gonna want something like the one that's on my bike or the one that's on this Lowrider S. And that gives you a lot more like lower back support for the driver. Gives you a good bit more, although it doesn't really look like it, gives you a good bit more cushion and support for your passenger. So both of you guys will be much happier if you upgrade the seat. Now going back to pegs, you'll see you have the basic foot peg on the front of this bike. You'll also see that this is a mid control, meaning the controls are in the middle of the bike. A lot of the taller guys like forward controls, they're not quite as good for aggressive riding. So having mid controls, it's a lot nicer up in the curves, if you're trying to hit corners fast and stuff, to have your controls in the middle of the bike. I'll show you guys what that looks like. I just worry that there may be a lot of first-time buyers or people new to the motorcycle world that kind of have no clue what I'm talking about or what to expect with a mid-control. All right, so at 5'11", this is what a mid-control looks like. You can see my knees are kind of bent here, whereas a forward control, my legs would be a little bit more extended. I don't mind this at all, and there's also a compromise if you want to keep your mid controls but still be able to stretch out on longer rides, and that would be putting an engine guard like I've done on my bike. This is technically designed so if you drop the bike at like a low speed maneuver, it will protect your gas tank. Hopefully you don't break anything off the handlebars, but it's supposed to protect the paint if you lay your bike over. I only put it on there so that when I'm riding, as you can see, I've switched my mid controls, the pegs at least anyway, to something different, a little wider, a little more comfortable, but still a mid control. The only reason I did this is so I can throw my legs out. So if I'm on a long highway stretch and I need to stretch my legs, now I have somewhere to put my feet. That doesn't break the bank, and in my opinion, it doesn't make the bike look bad. but it does give you an option for a little bit more comfort. Another thing that changed in 2025 is your hand control layout on this bike. The controls altogether changed, but the layout will be slightly different. One thing being your turn signals are now separated. A lot of Harley riders are used to having one switch for both signals, and it's over here on the left-hand side. Now they're separated. So on this left-hand control module, you will have all your cruise control options. Really nice that the Street Bob comes with cruise. I don't believe, I'll double check, but I do not believe last year's model came standard with cruise. There was an option to do a cruise, but you had to buy a different control module. You also had to get the bike flashed at a Harley Davidson dealership, so it was a little bit of a hassle. Now it's coming standard. You have your trip button, which is what I use to toggle through here on the gauges. You have your horn, your turn signal, and your lighting options up here. On your right-hand side, you will have your hazard lights, your traction control, your run, stop, and start switch are all integrated into one. So press it once, the bike comes on, press it again, you actually start the bike. And I'll start this because I get so many freaking comments about what does it sound like, what does it sound like? It's not impressive, so prepare to be let down. So that's it. That's what all new Harley Davidsons are going to sound like, because they're clogged up with this stock exhaust that doesn't let the bike breathe. Now, I kind of view the Street Bob as, it's a great bike for a lot of people, but I view it not as a beginner bike necessarily, but a better bike for beginners or people moving up from, say, like a Honda Rebel or something like that. So we'll go over a little bit more basic stuff, one of those being security. So you'll see this is your key fob. When you buy a Harley Davidson, you have a key fob, and then you have some physical keys here. You only get one key fob and two keys. People argue about that on the internet, so you're going to read conflicting information saying that they come with two. No, they come with one. They come with one. If your bike came with two and it was a brand new bike, that either means your dealer really hooked you up and threw that in, but most likely what happened is they went ahead and programmed a second key fob to your bike and put it somewhere in the deal, and you paid the cost of that extra key fob, which is not bad. Honestly, it's a smart idea to have a second one, but that's most likely what happened. So what does that key fob do? Because as you can see, there are no buttons to press here. So as you guys remember, when I was turning the bike on, all I had to do was flip that switch. You hear the fuel pump come on, the bike comes alive. If that key fob is not in range, this bike will not do that. So that's one layer of security. Now they call that a security fob. That, and then the turn signals will flash, not like it just did. That's what it does when the bike cuts off. But if you pick the bike up without the fob around, the front and rear signals will flash, but there is no alarm, there's no sound coming out of the bike. Very normal to see bikes doing that and nobody says anything or stops it, so don't rely on that alone. I would also encourage you to use this little fork lock right here. So for those that don't know, you can put that key in there, turn that and lock that, and what that will do is lock the forks. They're turned all the way to the left. It will lock them in this position. So if someone tries to push your bike, all they're going to be able to do is push it in a circle because the steering is turned all the way. Now moving around to the front of the bike, one thing that people either love or hate are these rubber fork boots here. Now all that's doing, it's not shock dampening or anything like that, although it kind of does look like it would be doing something like that. All that's doing is keeping dirt and debris out of your forks, which is a good thing. It helps you keep from blowing a fork seal. You can pull these down and move them and see that it's just your regular forks. Underneath there, we'll pull it up also so you can see. Nothing crazy going on underneath there. On the top here, you have a dust seal, and underneath that, you have your fork seal. This is good to keep stuff out, but I get a lot of people don't love the way that it looks, especially these. These look dirty, even though this is a brand new bike. So here's the deal. These are very easy to get rid of. If you don't like them, you just take something and cut them. Just be sure you don't gouge your fork leg or somewhere down here on the paint. The problem with that is there's no going back. There's no putting it back on unless you buy more And then at that point, you would loosen the bolts on your clamps, drop the fork leg out, put it on, slide the fork leg back on, which requires taking off your front wheel, etc., etc. So just be sure that's something you want to do before you commit to that. And then for reference, this is what it looks like on my bike without it. The Softail Standard did not come with that, and I'm thankful because I would have just had to cut it off. But that gives you an idea of what your forks would look like without them on there. Moving around to what people refer to as the B side of the bike, you'll see it looks pretty much the same on here. One thing that I like that they did, it's a small detail, but that black derby cover on the primary there to me just really ties everything in. If it was polished and blended in, I don't think it would pack the same punch that it does. Now, we talked about wheel options earlier in the video, but we didn't talk sizes. So your front wheel will be a 19, your rear will be a 16, which is a very common size combination for Harley Davidson. Also, you'll notice you have a single disc front brake up front, which this bike is pretty small, pretty light. You don't necessarily need two. Two's always better than one, but one does the job, and it also allows more visibility of this wheel, which is one thing I loved about my Softail being a single-sided brake, is you could see a lot of those nice SMT wheels that I put on there. Now, we started this bike up. You heard what it sounds like. One of the changes for this year is Harley Davidson is doing a factory 2-into-1 exhaust, which is the exhaust style that most people go with on this bike. And all that means is you have two pipes that come together here and come out to make one pipe. Although this exhaust isn't the best looking exhaust, it definitely looks better than what they did on the previous year models, which is this staggered setup here. You see it kind of looks cluttered. It looks really, really busy. So guys, I think that about covers it on the 2025 Street Bob. As I said, I am a big fan of this motorcycle. I think there's great value there for the money. I think Harley knocked it out of the park on this one. But let me know what you guys think. Are you digging the Street Bob? Not really. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.